Says China succeeding in its aim to choke Taiwan. Go after the economy with these continuous military drills. Has China succeeded in establishing a new normal with missiles flying over Taiwan and fighter jets and warships crossing the median line? And what next? Joining me from Taipei is Brian Ho, editor, New Blue magazine from Taiwan, and Lieutenant General Syed Atta Hasnain, former Kashmir Corps commander and a keen China watcher. Brian, is China successfully choking Taiwan's economy, trying to bring Taiwan down to its knees by these continuous military drills around Taiwan?
So that remains to be seen. It's too early to see that. And shipping has resumed despite the fact that these drills are taking place. And so there's a question then, what will happen going forward? For China to choke Taiwan off economically, this would take time. China has phrased its actions as a blockade. But would it actually conduct a long-term blockade or a substantive military blockade? That's a different question altogether. I don't think the Taiwanese government would take that sitting down, nor do I think the U.S. would. But I think that it is a question what China's actions now going forward. I mean, it's notable that this takes place in the same time as economic measures by China targeting Taiwan in terms of import blocks or some export blocks. And so I think these two things go hand in hand.
Okay. General Hasnain, how much of this, in your opinion, is optics for domestic audience in China, and how much of this is actually China wargaming the choking of Taiwan or preparation for an actual assault that some argue could take place as early as next 24 months?
Gaurav, there is no doubt about it. China's strategy has always been to follow a line of information psychological warfare. And it has ramped up its forces to ensure that. It got taken by surprise by the Pelosi visit, no doubt, and is now moving and responding to it. I think this will last the better part of a couple of days more. Remember, to take this to the level of an all-out war is not the kind of environment at the moment. And I think President Biden himself has expressed that he's really not concerned. Remember, China has invested $1.74 trillion in the United States. A war with the United States means that amount of money is wiped out from the Chinese economy. It cannot afford to go to war with America today. They are very good in playing these mind games. They are very good in doing brinkmanship. They've done it in Doklam with us. And if you remember in Doklam, this is the kind of war games that they played out in the depth areas in Tibet at that time. They did the same with us in April 2020 in Ladakh. Okay. And in the depth areas also they played out these war games. This is a part of Chinese war strategy. And I don't think this will last beyond the next, perhaps, 48 to 96 hours.
Okay. Brian, is that also your appreciation? Because some analysts believe China wants to choke the Taiwan Straits for a regime change in Taiwan, bring in a regime more friendly to Beijing.
Yes, that would not be possible. In fact, the drills increase support for the currently ruling Democratic Progressive Party, which is the party historically of Chinese independence. And so this is a way in which China's drills may be aimed at domestic consumption for domestic audiences or to consolidate Xi Jinping's power, but they actually ended up pushing Taiwan's sentiment further away from China. And in this sense, this is counterintuitive to its own aims. I think the drills will continue for some time, but I also agree that this might not go on past this week. China announced on Monday that they would continue past the end time, on Sunday, that they would continue past the originally scheduled end time for the drills, making it unclear as to where they would take place and when they would take place. I think China wants to keep the pressure on Taiwan with this sense of being able to strike or potentially conduct an invasion at any time, or that military drilling can occur. But in reality, China cannot do that. And apart from the effect on U.S.-China economic relations, which would affect China's economy, already slowing before the start of COVID-19, and affected by rolling lockdowns because of COVID-0, efforts to maintain COVID-0, Taiwan and China's economies are interlinked. For example, regarding semiconductors, yes, that China's own supply lines rely on. And so I don't think it goes two-way either in terms of this economic relationship.
No, but General, doesn't China then stand exposed? Or is China testing Taiwan's resolve like it tested India's resolve, whether in Doklam or in Galwan? It's seeing responses, it's modifying its strategy, and then the next assault could be bigger because they've already normalized what's happening now. Doklam, we are seeing a bigger Chinese build-up. In Ladakh, we are seeing a much bigger Chinese build-up and a bigger Chinese exercise that's already taking place, both in Xinjiang and in Tibet, General.
Yeah, Gaurav, these are two very different situations, no doubt, although we can compare them and see the manner in which both of them panned out. But you've got to look at the internal situation in China also. 2 months from now, we are probably going to be seeing the 20th Congress of the Chinese Communist Party assemble. That is going to be looking at the potential extension to President Xi Jinping. Now, is that the time when President Xi Jinping will be happy to see such military activity taking place in the maritime zone or on the borders anywhere? I don't think so. I think it will be something very much akin to 2017 when they pulled out of Doklam primarily because of the BRICS summit which was coming up at Wuhan, and also because of the Chinese Communist Party Congress, the 19th Congress which was taking place at that time. Whatever they do to ramp up this situation, to my mind, is only going to assist and help President Biden. His ratings, his approval ratings had gone absolutely low. I think with this kind of activity, it is showing him to be a confident leader, and perhaps from the 38% that he had fallen to, we'll see a ramp up of his approval ratings.
Okay. Brian, what is the reading in Taiwan, the way the United States has reacted? USS Ronald Reagan, the aircraft carrier, is in South China Sea and staying on longer.
Yeah, that's right. And so there has not been a strong reaction yet because I think particularly the mood is waiting to see what is happening. People in Taiwan are not panicking. Chinese threats have been directed at Taiwan for literally decades, and so this is nothing new. People actually only reacted quite slowly right before the Pelosi visit took place that it would happen. I don't think people were actually so focused on it as a news issue. But so people are not panicking, and I think particularly with the U.S. response, the Pelosi visit was already seen as a show of support for Taiwan from the U.S. People did not really perceive the splits that did occur between Biden and Pelosi that much. And so I think with the U.S. conducting freedom of navigation operations, this will also be seen as reassuring of the U.S. role in defending Taiwan. Whether that would actually take place is a different question altogether, but I think public faith in the U.S. still remains.
Public faith in U.S. remains. General, should the U.S. not have been closer to the Taiwan Strait? Has China succeeded in setting a new normal? Missiles firing over Taiwan, flying over Taiwan, or aircraft crossing the median, isn't that China escalating already?
Yes, there's no doubt that China is escalating, and it knows that the U.S. conduct of freedom of operations is reasonably away from the Straits for the moment. The United States also is not taking a risk. It has taken enough risk with the visit of Nancy Pelosi itself, and thereafter it has attempted to try and de-escalate, kept away from it. You can see that ramping up of activity has not taken place. Only the conduct of operations, maritime operations, freedom of navigation operations is the only thing. No demonstrations, no firing, nothing of that kind has taken place at all. So I think it's sensible not to risk this escalation anymore. The Chinese, yes, you're right. The Chinese have tried to establish a new normal by escalating it up to a point. But I think they've reached that point, the level of tolerance, they've reached that, and probably will de-escalate from tomorrow onwards.
Okay. Incidentally, the United States has also reportedly postponed the Minuteman III ballistic missile test so that China does not read that missile test wrongly and escalate further. We will continue to track developments on the story very closely. I've run out of time on this part of the show. Brian, for joining me from Taipei, and General Hasnain, as always, many thanks.